can't do that.
All right, here we are. See if the room starts to populate here. I got a little itch in my headphone. All right, as always, say hello when you enter the room and make sure you give StreamYard your credentials. Sorry it's so bright, but this extra monitor I have in here to put up maps makes things really oppressingly bright. I'm going to have to do something about that for me.
Shininess.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. I'm sorry. Oh, it's here we go. We got a bunch of people starting to come on now. Your aura?
Yeah.
Buddy, that nose, you got a real shiner. Look at that nose there.
What happened?
What'd you do?
I already told you.
Well, tell all of them. Did you fall off your motorcycle or did you fall on the playground?
I found on the playground inside a tire, and it was inside a blue tire. We were walking around the tire, and you only had 3 lives.
All right.
You only have 3 lives.
All right, we got people saying hi. Hello, Sean Casey. Hey, it's Thomas. And Thomas is not in Europe tonight. Team German Swiss has a member in Detroit, which is possibly the only place in America with more dangerous than the middle of Idaho in bear mating season or something. Last time I was in Detroit, I didn't think I was going to make it out. Thomas, you got to tell me later on, buddy, what you're doing in Detroit. Let's see. Scott Murray, Andrew Hickson, Al Porter, Brian. All right, we got everybody rolling in here. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about day 2, and we're just going to talk about it a little bit just because there's not a lot to talk about in terms of day 2. I got some old business I'll get to. Yes, sir.
Are they going to talk to us tonight?
Yeah, they talk right there. See that? Brett Asper, he's there. Nick Wood, he's there. They're all saying hello. You can say hello back.
Hi.
Okay, so first we got some business. I have been told that there's not going to be a PBR Monday next Monday. Is that right? No PBR Monday next Monday?
Yeah, because we got a birthday party.
And that's me.
I'm going to have a house full of 5- and 6-year-olds running around playing football, riding motorcycles, stuff like that. So no PBR Monday next Monday. We'll try to get through a little bit of what I would have talked about, but we got plenty of time to get through all this stuff. But anyway, nothing next week. What else? Yes?
My name is MJ.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Like, this guitar makes me look like I have devil horns.
You're as goofy as they are. All right, so I told you all that you had a mission tonight because I'm in a fair amount of trouble here because I have had to explain to my family why we are not going to Europe for the next 2 summers. Right now, the hot ticket is Ukraine. My wife wants to go to Ukraine and help fight Russia right now, and my kids are up for it too. So I need for you all to explain to me, not to explain to me, explain to them why I don't get to go to Europe for the next 2 summers, why I got to stay here, because I'm doing this for you guys. So you got to bail me out a little bit. I need to know why I'm not going to Europe. What is the compelling reason that I'm staying here instead of going to Europe and hanging out in Rome and Venice and London and Berlin and Paris and all the capitals of Europe and maybe throwing hand grenades at Russian troops and stuff like that? Because my family wants me to go and I can't go. What?
This guitar makes me look like a devil.
It makes you both look like devils. See, these guys are lame. Completely lame. They're not going to bail me out at all.
I don't see any reason why you can't go.
And the guitar back me looks like I have a horn, like a unicorn.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, you guys aren't helping me out there. There is nothing that's getting me out of trouble. So I think everybody's mystery routes this year are about to get a lot more interesting since I'm in trouble every single day. Every morning, my wife gets up. My beautiful better half here gets up, watches TV news. Some mornings it's Fox, some mornings it's CNN. We like to kind of go back and forth to play it fair a little bit. But every morning, the question is the same. Is Zelensky still alive? And my wife here wants to go to Ukraine so bad she can't hardly stand it. And on the way, we would see London, Paris, these other places. And, oh, look at this. We sure do appreciate your dad. Somebody's there. Look at this. Beer is better in the States. Well, we all know that's horse shit.
I think
Sorry.
Ooh.
Actually, I think it is because PBR is here, but most people would disagree with that. But at least Nick Wood is trying. He tried. See that? There's one guy there that gave us a reason.
Let's go on vacation.
For good.
Look, Dwayne Coulter. See, he's not planning on doing the tour, though. See, go to Europe. Let's see, Drew. I just got home from Europe with my daughter, and the appreciation.
Oh, it's better for 10.
Yeah.
We think we should wait because our kids aren't old enough.
Yeah, our kids aren't old enough. That's kind of a good
That is
excuse.
kind of good. I do want them to remember
Where?
to go to Europe.
I want to go to Europe. I want to go play at the park.
Well, hey. You know what? When we do go, Mommy and I are riding in first class, and since you guys are small, you're riding in the back of the
Europe is
plane.
coming to the U.S. this summer.
There you go. That's Team German Swiss
Europe-
right there.
Europe's
That's
coming
Thomas
to us.
Hogg. Yes. Yes. Tour of Idaho is properly stopping world hunger. That's awesome. All right. Thanks a lot for coming down, you guys, trying to bail me out. I'll see you all in a little bit. Are you going to go up and practice?
Yeah.
You better play good.
Go practice for our band.
Oh, my gosh.
So when we go to Europe, we can tour.
So we can get it all paid for?
Yeah. All right, bye.
Okay, say bye.
Come on. Come on, AJ.
All right. So let's get to business. First of all, there's a little unfinished business from last week. Buddy, you're going the right way. I have forgotten to mention a company that's done an awful lot of good things for the Tour of Idaho. And I've forgotten to mention them like 3 weeks in a row, and I feel awful about it. And it's Tugger Straps. And the time for me to talk about those guys was when we were talking about the rescue kit, because you absolutely want a set of Tugger straps to hook to your bike to attach the rescue kit. Those guys, they're great friends to the Tour of Idaho. When I was raising money to keep trails open, those guys helped me out a ton. They're a couple of the best dudes in the world, the guys that run Tugger Straps. They're sponsors of the tour. Their information's on the website. By all means, you should not show up here without a set of Tugger Straps for your bike. Those guys, they are the most awesome people in the world, and I feel awful that I failed to mention them when I was talking about the rescue kit. But Tugger Straps, absolutely, it's a no-brainer. You need a pair. Just the little bit of effort that it saves you when you need to jerk your bike back up on the trail, having that strap like on the fenders, it's really nice. It just saves you a little bit of energy. All right. Something else. Now's a good time. It's a little bit late, but it's not too late to be thinking about your suspension. And we have a guy that works with us, Alex Martins, and he was on here last fall, Conflict Motorsports. If you're thinking about getting some suspension work done, I highly recommend that you call Alex at Conflict, because he's one of the guys that really knows what he's doing. There's a ton of people out there that do motorcycle suspension. When I was road racing, street bikes, I dealt with all kinds of guys that did suspension. You know what? Most of them are pretty smart. I mean, a lot of these guys are really good at what they do. They do one thing and they do it fairly well. So it's not like there's just one company out there that does it. But I do think Alex is a little special, because more than anything, I think Alex gets what we do, which is an important part of it. What I found a lot in having suspension done myself, both for street and dirt bikes, is that most people, they assume that you're a racer. And no matter how much you try to disabuse them of that notion, they just assume that you're on the gas everywhere. And I find that everything, compression and rebound, is just too stiff. And you got to really get to the extreme ends of most people's settings to get it to settle the way that I like. Your fully loaded bike is going to feel completely different than your unloaded bike. All that fuel, the stuff that you're going to be carrying. I mean, at the very minimum, you're talking 20, 30, 40 pounds extra if you include fuel. And your stock suspension just isn't going to work. If you call Alex and you tell him what you're doing, he understands the Tour of Idaho very, very well, and his work is fast. It's absolutely first rate. I trust the guy intimately. He's one of the few people anymore that I would trust to do suspension for me. So I highly recommend that you call Alex, even if you don't want to take the suspension off your bike and send it to him. He's a good guy to talk to. You know, he's got some stuff he can sell you that would help if you're the kind of guy that works on it yourself. But, you know, he can generally turn stuff around pretty fast. So you can rip stuff off your bike, send it to him, and have it back in plenty of time for the tour. And I highly recommend that you talk to him and avail yourself of his knowledge. And if you can get your stuff to him, get it worked on. We recommended that you do that over the winter, but it's not too late. You know, we're still several months away, and there's time to get all of that done. So I wanted to make sure that I gave those two shouts. Awesome guys in both those businesses, and really important to what we do here. They've been friends of the tour for many years. I really wanted to thank Dax Simonelli again, our guest from last week. You know, I don't know Dax, and that was the first time I'd ever even seen him. I've talked to him on the phone a few times. We've exchanged a lot of emails back and forth through the years. But I really didn't know very much about him, and I didn't tell Dax what to say. I don't talk to guests in advance and say, this is how we're going to do it. Everything's off the cuff here, and it's free form. But I think it's important that Dax kind of settled, in my mind anyway, something that it goes on in that forum. I see people posting stuff in the forum all the time. And again, I stay out of that. The forum is for you guys, but it's a source of humor for me sometimes. This argument about the best tire setup for the tour. And Dax settled it in my mind. Of course, it was already settled before because most people who've done the tour end up kind of agreeing with my take on tires. Now, whether or not you think the Golden tire is the best or not, that's up to you. But you know what? Pretty heavy-duty tires and ultra heavy-duty tubes. I think the Bridgestones are the best. The IRCs are just not as thick as the Bridgestones. And you want the Bridgestones Ultras. Put some slime in them, and I have never, ever, ever had a flat on the Tour of Idaho with that setup. I've had a few flats in other places, riding in the California desert a couple of times, but I run twin beadlocks on the back. It's always been the back that's flatted. And I rode 60 miles out once with a hole that I could have stuck my pinky finger in. Slime ain't going to help you with something that big. It was a huge nail that I got in it. But, stiff tires sometime, ultra heavy-duty tubes with a couple of beadlocks, you can make it. Someone asked last week, I think I saw a comment somewhere, I might have seen it in the forum, what's a patch that'll work for that? I've never had a problem patching them. It's not the patch as much as it is the adhesive. You got to clean it really good, but I found a wide variety of patches to work. I guess I've just never had that problem. But again, I hardly ever have a problem with those things anyway. One time at the very end of a tour, I had one that I'd run for like 2 tours in a row. So I'd run the same set of tubes 2 years in a row on my tour bike. And right towards the end of the tour, I got something in a sidewall or something. It was a real slow leak, and the slime mostly took care of it. But I got all the way to the end of the tour, and I was coming back, and I decided to ride back to Wallace and have my wife meet me there because it's a lot shorter for Pocatello to go there than it is to have them drive all the way up to Priest Lake. So I'm riding back to Wallace from Priest Lake, and I noticed that the last few miles back, the tire was starting to go down, but it still made it all the way back, and it had a fairly good size hole in it. Something had gotten into the sidewall. So I just, again, don't take my word for it. Dax Simonelli, all he does is tires. He understands what we do here, and he told you the same thing that I and many others are going to tell you, that bib boosters and tubeless, those are great systems for some applications, in my opinion. And in our tire expert last week, they're not the greatest for the Tour of Idaho. You want to run them, that's fine. And, you're not, I have long ago given up trying to convince anybody whose mind is set that, try to get them to think about it a little bit differently. If you're that person, that's fine with me, but don't have a come apart when the thing doesn't work. And there have been many, many teams that have been screwed the last few years by tire issues when we tried to tell them what you are doing has a very high probability of causing you some trouble somewhere along the way. And I've never heard anybody complain about the ultra heavy duty tubes and, reasonably good tires. So let's close that out for right now. And the next argument we'll talk about is motor oil or something crazy like that. So let's get into day 2. By the way, I updated the Mojazz website today. I made some changes to day 1. Just people asked me questions about waypoints and stuff like that. I relocated a few waypoints just to make it a little bit more clear about where you needed to go. Let's see. I put up a new map too. There wasn't really any change in the map, but I just put up a new one anyway for day 1. Relocated, relabeled a few waypoints just to make things a little bit more clear. I could have spent all day today just answering PMs. I had like 30 of them. It was incredible. And some of them I answered, some of them I didn't. Sometimes that's a matter of time, but sometimes I get PMs. People ask that have already been answered and answered clearly. And what I see as a pattern sometimes where people ask me questions that if you'd read the Mojazz website, that would not be a question that you would have. So in order to do this navigation, once again, when you're looking at day 1, we're going to talk day 2 today. You need to take all of the information you have and put it together. You can't just look at the waypoints. You can't just look at that map that I upload. You can't just look at the route description. You have to, it's a synergy of all 3 of those things. You have to take them whole as a whole. So as you're going through the waypoints, a really good thing to do is compare the waypoints to the map. And you can overlay those waypoints on all kinds of base maps these days. Everybody has software that'll do it. As I said, I have CalTopo, and I like it a lot, but there's all kinds of software that'll do that for you. The nice thing about CalTopo in particular is you can upload the MVUM maps for the state of Idaho, and I find that handy, although with the caveat, those maps are not 100% accurate. They're about 90% accurate. But even today, I was looking at some stuff and going, man, the trail here is the wrong trail. That trail doesn't exist. So the waypoints that I have are waypoints that I have physically stood in that location, and I know it's where it's supposed to be. Now, again, when you get there, that may not be true because, GPS is an imperfect technology. And they guarantee GPS to about 3-meter resolution. Well, 3 meters, that's a long way. 3 meters could put you well off in the bushes. So, and sometimes it's worse than that. It depends on where you're, those GPS satellites move around. You're not looking at the same set of satellites all the time. They're in low orbits and they move around. So it depends upon how many satellites your GPS unit can see. And there's a little bit of drift that you get with GPS units. Now, one of the reasons I like the Trail Tech is because it's really good. That thing, it's really, really good most of the time. And the Garmin units, the purpose-made backpacking units are the same way. They have really good chipsets in them. They're really good at averaging out all of the various input streams that they're getting from different satellites, and they're pretty darn accurate. But even those I've seen occasionally drift just a little bit. So when you get there, if that waypoint is 12 feet off the side of the trail in the bushes, that's not something for you to worry about. You don't have to go there and find it. You just assume that that's GPS drift. And especially in the central northern parts of the state that aren't really well covered by satellites a lot of the time, you get, sometimes you're only seeing 1, 2, or 3 satellites instead of 7 or 8. In some of those areas. You get way down in the valley sometime and in the trees. You don't get as good coverage with GPS. Again, you have to take all of this stuff holistically. So on day 1, I did nonetheless reroute a couple of waypoints, put them in slightly different places. I changed the numbering a little bit on some of them to relieve a little bit of confusion. And it should be good to go now. So have a look at day 1 again and if you had any questions, and go back and hopefully it'll be more clear after you see it again. But again, don't just look at the waypoints. Look at the map because it's all color-coded. It tells you, what's a bonus section, what's a challenge section, black versus yellow. The 1, 2, and 3 person routes, all that is explained in the write-up. I had people saying, well, I don't know what the bonus sections are. Well, go read the write-up. It's all there. And then one other thing. All of these broadcasts, all of my efforts are devoted towards the Tour of Idaho T1. I know there are a lot of people that want to come this year and just ride part of it, and that's fine. And, what I said is, look, last year's maps will do. And, before you get here, I can give you a map to sort of fill in the gaps. I'm not sending anybody to the secret stuff. That you have to be doing a Tour of Idaho T1 this year to do. I'm not telling anybody where the secret stuff is. Everybody's carrying saws this year, so the stuff that I don't get sawed myself, you'll have to go do it. So I don't have a lot of extra time for people that aren't planning on doing a T1 this year. This is specifically for T1. So you T2, T3 guys, that God bless you. Go ahead and go out there and have as much fun as you can manage. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time answering questions about that stuff. We don't give out jersey numbers or anything for that. We don't track any of those people. That's just there for you to do. You can take as much time as you want. And, if you want to do it T1 style, but only do, half of it or a third of it, that's fine. But T1 means you're doing the whole thing. We're tracking you the whole way. You're doing what's known as a T2 if you're doing anything outside the rules. And it's have as much fun as you can, but I'm not going to spend very much time talking about that because it's all I can do to keep up with T1. What I will do, however, is for the holes that are in the map this year where I'm not going to tell anybody except T1 teams where to go, I can give you some alternative routings about that. That's not a problem. And it'll be what we did last year. It'll just be last year's maps. Let's see. Ralph is there, one of our oldest participants in this community. Craig McCurdy, hello. Jim Spooner, hello. Anthony, Jessica Mason, hello. And Len Howard, hello. Glad to see all of you. So all of that preemptory stuff out of the way, let's get into day 2. So day 2 this year is something new. We used to recommend a day off in Pocatello. A lot of people complained about that. They said we don't need a day off. I think most people actually did need the day off, but that's okay. So this year you get a half day off. And I think that the way I would set this up, if it were me, and this is just if it were me, you can do it any way you want, is I would go to Pocatello Power Sports. I would make an appointment for early in the morning. I would go to Power Sports first, get my bike service taken care of. I would make the rounds of all the places to get my supplemental points. And I haven't listed very many of those yet, but I will later. I'd take care of all that stuff in the morning. I'd get out of here about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and do this loop around Pocatello in the afternoon. It'll be a little hotter if you wait till the afternoon, but that way you get all the stuff that you really need to get done in Pocatello done. You're sure to get that done. At the very worst, you can go out and ride this stuff in the evening when it starts to cool down, because this loop is going to take you at the most 4 hours, and that's only if you do the bonus section. If you just do the normal loop, I do that loop all the time, and it takes me 2.5 hours. I know the trails really well, so I think most of you would probably take 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, somewhere in there to do it. If you do the bonus, it'll take you a little bit longer, maybe as much as 4 hours. But if you leave at 3 and you do the regular route, you don't do the bonus, you ought to be back here by 6. If you left at 6, you ought to be back by 9. And you don't need to get the super early start the next day, because you're going to be at the desert fairly early in the morning anyway. So there's no need for a 4 a.m. start on day 3. You can get going, at the normal time, 5 to 6 or something like that, and you're going to be just fine. So the first bit of advice I would give you, which you're completely free to accept or reject, is do it in the afternoon. Do the loop around Pocatello in the afternoon. Unless weather's an issue. You show up and the weather looks like it may be an issue, then maybe get out in the morning. But if you're going to do that, get going early, because you want to make sure you get back to Power Sports and give those guys some time with your bike. That's extremely important. So what you're going to do is we're going to do the same thing as we've done for the last 10 years now. The first part out of Pocatello, you're going to ride down south of town on Bannock Highway, also known as Mink Creek Road, and you're going to ride up to the Gibson Jack Trailhead. And I'm looking at it on the map right now. It's a real pleasant ride up there, and you get up to a big brand new parking lot. So you ride up this road, and there's a great big paved brand new parking lot. And the trail that you want goes out the west side of that parking lot. It's an incredibly well-marked trail, and it's kind of right by the doggy poop baggie dispenser there. And you ride down the trail a little ways, and the trail splits after maybe, less than 100 yards, the trail splits. The fork on the right is a non-motorized trail. The fork on the left is the motorized trail. And you want to take that left fork. Now, the left fork's going to take you down. You're going to cross a little creek, a little bridge, a little wooden bridge. Then it's going to take you up a hill pretty steeply. And it's a quad trail at this point. You come up to the top of the hill, you come out of some trees, and a lot of people get lost at this point. I try to arrange the waypoints in a manner that would help you, but you come up that first hill, and right as you come out of the trees, you see a trail on your right go steeply up the hill. That is an ATV trail, and it obviously looks like an ATV trail. But at that spot where you stop, and there's a sign there that's got the name of the trail, right at that sign, the trail looks like it wants to curve around and just go up the hill. And I see people every year just blow past that sign and take off up that hill and then realize that they're on the wrong trail after they've gone a mile or so, because the wrong trail kind of parallels the correct trail. When you get to that little clearing out of the trees there, and there's a sign right in front of you, you don't want to turn to the right and head up the hill. You want to turn left and go down the hill. And if you stop there for a second, you'll see it. You go down to the left, and there's a little single-track trail that goes down there. Take that trail downhill for, 20 feet or something like that. Then it turns to the right, and you head down the hill, and you're on the first single-track trail. It's the beginning of the Slate Mountain Trail. It goes along a creek for about 3 or 4 miles, then climbs up. Once you get on that Slate Mountain Trail, the first few miles are through a creek. It's really pretty. It's overgrown on both sides. That freaks some people out. It's in kind of a deep rut. That freaks people out, but it's a nice trail. And it's one of the first trails that we take our kids on around here when they learn how to ride their 50s. It's that good of a trail. You're going to ride, cross the creek a few times after a few miles. Then it starts to switch back up this hill. Once you start going up through those switchbacks, you want to pay close attention, because there is a point, and there's a waypoint located right where you need to make this decision. All of a sudden, the waypoints leave the trail off to the left. They head back to the north, but the trail continues straight up. You want to look at that on the satellite really carefully. It's right where you start to climb out of the creek. You don't want to go straight up that trail. Those switchbacks are in there for a reason. On a loaded tour bike, going straight up that trail is not something that you want to do. You want to go out to the left, follow the nice single track trail that goes up those switchbacks, you'd be a lot happier. You get up on a bench, and then you're on the Slate Mountain Trail proper. And Slate Mountain is a beautiful trail. It's just one of the greatest motorcycle trails you can imagine. You get up there, and the only thing about it that puts some people off is it's your first kind of exposure to side hills of concern. A little bit of that maybe on day one coming around Elkhorn, but there are some for real side hills on this trail. And I have actually gotten phone calls and had to go out and pull Tour of Idaho riders back up onto the trail who didn't have a rescue kit or didn't know how to use it. That's happened a couple of times. So there's some side hills, and there's some places where it would be way better if you didn't ride off the left side of the trail. And it's not always in the real cliffy regions. Sometimes you go in where you're crossing the creeks. Whenever you cross a creek on a side hilly trail, it always tends to go back in a little bit, then cross the creek, and then come back out, just because it's following a contour. Every time you go in and cross one of those creeks, I would recommend you not dab a foot on your left side, because a lot of people get in trouble there too. It tends to be a fairly steep drop-off. So you're going to ride Slate Mountain Trail. It eventually pops up, a really beautiful view of Scout Mountain. Then you ride downhill 3 or 4 miles, and you come to Bannock Highway / Mink Creek Road. So you're going to ride through a trailhead parking area. You're going to turn left, and you're going to head down South Bannock Highway / Mink Creek Road about a mile on a paved road. You're heading back towards Pocatello. And in about a mile, you're going to come up on the Scout Mountain Road. And you're going to turn right there. And it's all waypointed. It's on the maps. It's easy to find. Major road, it's a paved road. We used to take you up that road about a mile and then to something called Lead Draw Trail. But last year, Lead Draw got closed, and that's worth talking about because I'm going to talk about 2 access issues tonight. This is the first one. I'm going to talk about another one in a few minutes. But there's a shooting area at the Lead Draw Trailhead. Has been for all the time I've lived here, 30 years. And all the time I've lived here, it's people drag junk out there. They shoot up old furniture. Nobody picks up their brass. Nobody picks up their shells. Nobody picks up the targets that they shot at. So the place is a mess. Well, add to that, we have some knuckleheads. By the way, you're hearing this from a guy. You think I have a lot of guitars. You ought to see my gun collection. I'm a big firearms guy. I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I love to shoot. I was out shooting just a little while ago. So I'm not one of these anti-gun guys. You're hearing this from a guy who is invested in firearms. A lot of people who shoot firearms, just like a lot of people who ride motorcycles in the woods, give the rest of us a bad name. And Lead Draw is the poster child for this. So there's all this trash, all this crap all over the place. Then a few years ago, some people hiking down the trail got shot at by some knuckleheads that were target shooting down there, which is stupid because you have to be shooting down the trail to do it. So that caused a big hubbub, and what they decided to do was close Lead Draw to motorized traffic. Why they did this when it was hikers that got shot at, I don't know, but I guess they thought motorized vehicles, motorcycles specifically, had a potential to come up on the shooting area faster, although you're loud as hell on a motorcycle, so they're going to hear you. They can hear you coming from a mile away. I don't know why. That's the decision they made. So they built a really nice new trailhead there. I helped with the cleanup. A bunch of us went up there and worked with them on, look, this is how we should reroute this trail so that we can have it. And about a week ago, somebody went up there and set fire, burned all the signs down, trashed the entire area again, tore up a fence, shot up all the trail signs and stuff. It's just the knuckleheadedness never ends. So we're not going to be able to use that area again this year. You got to go on up the road to one of the Scout Mountain campgrounds. Sorry about that, but there's nothing I can do about that. That is some knucklehead went out there and just shot the shit out of the place, and we can't use it now. More on that in a few minutes. So you're going to go on up the road, a couple miles or so, and you start up a series of switchbacks, and just before that first switchback, there's a little road that goes off to the left, and it's waypointed, and it goes back to a little campground/picnic area. That will get you access to the Crestline Cycle Trail, which is the trail that you're going to take to go up to the top of Scout Mountain. It's a beautiful trail. You're going to love it. There's some great views. There's some side hilling up there, too. I saw a guy tumble, believe it or not, like 600 feet off a side hill up there once because early in the season, before all of you get here, there's some big snow patches up there you got to get across. I mean, this is all up around 9,000 feet, so it's up pretty high. And there are snow patches that'll persist there into July 4th weekend every year. So you get up there, and early on, guys like me are like trying to push across those snow patches, but I have enough sense to get off and push in the spots where I think it's kind of dicey. But, man, there's guys that get up there, and they're just on it like this. And a couple years ago, I was riding it insanely early in the year. It was like in the middle of June or something, big snow patch up there. And I come up there, and I got off the bike and I start pushing a little bit. You know, there's some spots you could ride, but some spots are just, for me, it's taking too big of a risk. And I get out there about halfway across this snow patch, and I look down, and there's a freaking bike down there. And that bike is like 600 to 800 feet below me. And I look around, I start hollering to see if there's anybody there, and I don't hear anything. And I go riding on down the trail. And a little later on, I ran into some guys, and they said, yeah, it's a friend of ours' bike. We're going to come back in tomorrow and get it. It happened a couple of days ago. So you got to be careful up in there. But by the time you get there, there shouldn't be any snow. So you go across this trail, which is one of my favorites, and then you're going to go up to the top of Scout Mountain, which is an out and back. So you go up to the top, come back down. Then you have a decision to make, maybe. There's no longer a challenge section on day 2, but there is a bonus section, and it's the same thing that we used last year as a challenge section. So you can ride that black loop that I have up there, and it'll count as a 1-point bonus, and it's a cool loop. I like it a lot, but you're required to ride it if you've ever ridden any day 2 stuff before. Again, that's something that I'm going to do this year. if it's been more than a year, I'm likely to make some of that stuff go away or lessen the requirements. But if you were here last year, or if you're a local and you ride that stuff all the time, I want to make you ride a little bit more stuff than I'm going to make people that, like our friends that are coming in from Europe. They don't know anything about any of this. So I want to try to level that playing field a little bit. So the bonus section on day 2 is mandatory if you've ridden day 2 trails for sure within the last year. So if you were here last year, you're going to have to do it. Even if it's a little bit more than a year, if like your date you're arriving this year is a little bit later, if you rode it last season, you're going to need to do this bonus section, and it won't be for a bonus. It'll be mandatory. If you don't need to do it, you decide to do it, it's worth a point if you do it. So you can earn a 1-point bonus by doing this. And again, it's kind of cool. But would I do it if I didn't have to? I would not. I would just take my rest day, your half day, and just do what you got to do. Get back to Pocatello, get well rested for the next day, because the next day is going to be big. So for all others, you are going to go down. You're going to go around something. You're going to go around this real stinky pond that's got a lot of scum on it. You go down a quad trail, go past that pond, go down Valve House Trail, and you are going to hit something called Racetrack Trail. And Racetrack is one of the coolest trails in the area. And it's going to take you right out to South Fork Road. You hit South Fork Road, which is a gravel road. You turn right. You're going to go a couple of miles, and there is a brand new quad trail there that's just been put in the past couple of years, and it's called Transmission Line Trail. You're going to take that trail back over Valve House, and once you hit the Valve House Trail, just keep going to the left. If you go to the right, you're going to get off on the wrong trail, but you just keep going left. Any place you have to make a decision, and it's a real short distance. It takes you right back down to that Bannock Highway, Mink Creek Road. And it's a quarter mile, half a mile at the most maybe, so it's difficult to get lost, but there are some other trails that go in different directions there. Again, it's waypointed, it's well indicated on the map, and if you look at any of the MVUMs, they'll tell you approximately where to go. By the way, the MVUM for that Transmission Line Trail is wrong. There's a bunch of switchbacks it doesn't have in there, and it's approximately right, but it's not completely right. So again, look at aerial photos, look at my waypoints, and when you're out in the trail, just follow the trail from one waypoint to the next, and you'll be fine. If you're riding up a trail and your map that you have, you can load up all these MVUMs in your TrailTech Voyager Pro, and it says go straight up the hill, but the trail is obviously switchbacking up the hill. You should switch back up the hill. Because again, these underlying maps are not frequently wrong, but it's not incredibly uncommon that they're wrong. They're wrong at least 10% of the time, and often more than that. On day 2, they're wrong a lot. It's about 50% of the time. So you're going to ride this Transmission Line Trail to Valve House out to Bannock Highway, Mink Creek Road. Once you get there, you're going to turn left. You're going to go up to Corral Creek Trailhead. It's a big parking lot on the right. You can't miss it. It's got a big sign that says Corral Creek. And you're going to take a quad trail that's kind of cool for a quad trail. And it goes steeply up the hill. Up at the top, it runs into a Jeep trail. You turn right on that Jeep trail, and you start heading up the hill again. And you will eventually come to the end of that road. And right where the road ends, there's a set of boulders there, and it's pretty clear that the trail goes down through these boulders, and you're on something called the Elk Meadows Loop. So the Elk Meadows Loop is the second access issue that we need to talk about today. I have a piece of swag that I will award to the first person out there listening to this tonight. There's about 50 of you out there between the various platforms. What group of outdoor users do you think give the federal agencies and state agencies the most trouble these days? What do you think are the group of outdoor recreationists that cause the most concern, cause the most trouble, or the biggest pain in the ass to deal with? Go ahead and tell me in the comments, and the person that has the winning answer, I'll have some swag waiting for you when I see you. See what we got coming in here. Sean, it's not shooters, amazingly enough. Tyler, it's not side-by-sides. It's not Razor drivers. It's not UTV Yahoos. Nope, none of them. Nope, It's not adventure riders. Those are some of the best people. Brian Goss, you are my hero. It's freaking mountain bikers, and Drew Corbridge but got it too. When you guys show up here, remind me I got something for you. I got a little bit of swag. It's absolutely mountain bikers. Mountain bikers and hikers are another thing that they have a lot of trouble with, but mountain bikers are the worst. And it's my experience around here. Mountain bikers don't think any of the rules apply to them. Now, there is a cohort in every group of recreations that way. We have our own people that are that way. You know, there are these guys up in central Idaho that cut all these illegal trails, you know, ride stuff way before it's open, way after it's closed. They don't think the rules apply to them. We have those people too. You know, we're all familiar with the doofus, you know, in the big diesel truck, Chip, doing donuts in the parking lot with 2 dirt bikes in the back. We have those people. We talked about shooters earlier. They have those people. Although I think in terms of shooting, the vast majority of shooters are very responsible, but in that sport, it really only takes a very few people to cause a big problem. Mountain bikers, though, are a little bit different. I would venture to say that it's more than just a few mountain bikers I know that have a major attitude because they think their poop does not stink. They think they don't do any damage to trails, so you'll see those guys in there riding way early. Now, the fact that these mountain bike trails are rutted 2 feet deep doesn't faze them in the least bit. Oh, that must be motorcycle guys doing that. It's not. It's you. So this area around Elk Meadows has probably got 30 or 40 illegal trails cut in it. A couple years ago, a guy went up there and actually cut a fence and let a bunch of cattle out because a farmer who, there's a mixture of public and private land up there, but even the public land, people have grazing permits. A mountain biker objected to that. He cut a fence because there was a fence across his favorite trail. If you and I come up to a fence, you know, you got to lift a motorcycle that weighs, you know, my 300, which is what I usually ride, weighs 225 or something like that. Yeah, I can lift it up. It's a little hard to huck it over a fence, but I've done it. Those guys have something that literally weighs 20 pounds. It's the easiest thing in the world to huck it over a fence. This doofus cut the fence and let all these cattle out. I know who it was. It's the same guy that's cut most of those trails up there. So there are illegal single-track trails everywhere up there. And to make life even more interesting, the signs are all burned down, destroyed, taken away, and it's just a mess. So this whole Elk Meadows area is really interesting. You're going to see trails going everywhere up there. So I waypointed it. I put it on the map. And also it's another area where the MVUM is incorrect. It's going to take you down the wrong trail. So you want to go to my waypoint when you're going around Elk Meadows to the west. Make sure you go to my waypoint. There is a trail that takes off just before that. That trail is indicated on the MVUM as the correct trail. It is not. You want to go up to the next trail up, and it takes you down into Pole Creek to Midnight Gulch. Now, having said that, all those trails will take you to the same place. So all these trails that the mountain bikers cut in will all take you down to Midnight Gulch. They all go down there. And some of them are way better than the trail we're going to use because the trail we use is an ATV trail. Some of those single tracks are fantastic. They're all really cool, but they're illegal. Now, will you get busted? Nah. The Forest Service understands. If you're in there and you tell them, look, I'm lost, they know the signage is knackered and everything. It's a big discussion we've had here locally what to do about all that. And I'm saying, well, look, if it was the group that I have represented, I know what you'd be doing. You'd be writing tickets. Why don't you go out and do the same thing for these doofuses? And they've started doing it. Right above my house, Chinese Peak. That's on BLM land, and the rules that apply to motorcycles apply to mountain bikes up there too. It's mechanized travel, not just motorized. So all those single track trails that I would love to take you guys on Chinese Peak, but I can't. Mountain bikers aren't allowed to use those either. It's mechanized travel that's not allowed there. There's a bazillion miles of single track right out my back gate that's awesome, but it's illegal. Same thing up in this Elk Meadows area. There's a bazillion miles. There's probably 70 miles of trails that people have cut into an area that's maybe 10 by 10, 100 square miles. It's incredible what the mountain bikers have done up there. But anyway, get yourself down to Midnight Gulch. You're going to ride up Midnight Gulch, and you're going to come up to Kinport Peak. Now, there's sort of two Kinport Peaks. There's the Kinport Peak that's got all of the the antenna on it. It's a big electronic sight up there. It's the one that you can see from my house the day before when you're at the flagpole and you look across the valley and you see all the masts up there. That's the Kinport Peak electronic sight, but there is another Kinport Peak knoll, and it's a little bit higher. And it's a challenge point that I put in for the day. It's one of the 2 challenge points that are on the day. The first is Scout Mountain. The second is up on that Kinport knoll up there. It's a short day, so we'll just do 2 challenge points that day. And everybody has to do it. There's no variation of routes. There's not like an X, Y, and a Z route in day 2. We'll keep it nice and simple. There's just the bonus that may not be a bonus if you were here last year, if you pre-ride this year, if you're local. So once you get to that Kinport Knoll, you're going to ride down some Jeep and quad trails down to something called Trail Creek. There's a bunch of ways to get there, and I don't really care how you get down to Trail Creek. If you want to just ride straight down the ridge, that's fine. The way that I waypointed, I think is a little bit more interesting, gives you a little bit more time. It's good trails. You'll like it. You're eventually going to come to another electronic site that'll take you down to Trail Creek Road. You're going to take Trail Creek Road back down into town. And once you get into town, just find your way back to your lodging and you're good to go. And you will have done my favorite afternoon ride. I do that ride all the time. And like I say, it takes me, depending on exactly the variation I do, sometimes I don't go all the way over to Trail Creek. I cut off a little bit early and come back. Usually that is a 90-minute to 2-hour ride for me. If I go all the way over to Trail Creek, it's 2.5 to 3. And I don't ride that fast, but I do know the trails really well. So I would say most of you should count on between 3 and 4 hours, depending on whether or not you're doing the bonus section. That ought to get you back. You don't need to carry a bunch of stuff. You can leave most of your stuff in your hotel room or your Airbnb or whatever you're doing. I wouldn't take the full kit. You certainly don't need to worry about fuel. The loop is between 60 and 70 miles, again, depending on whether or not you're doing the bonus. It's a little less than 60. I think it's 55 or something like that if you're just doing the regular route. And it's close to 70, I think, if you're doing the whole thing. But all of you should easily be able to manage that without carrying any spare fuel. You shouldn't have a problem with that. So that is your day 2 this year. Again, my recommendation is that you do it in the afternoon. Get your stuff done in the morning. Do it in the afternoon. If you leave by 3, you should be back by 6. If you leave at 4, you should be back by 7, 8 at the latest. You can still get to bed kind of early. And for day 3, you don't need to get the 4 a.m. start that we used to recommend to avoid the desert heat, because you're going to be in the desert first thing in the morning. So I'll take questions about day 2 here, but while I'm waiting for those to come up, if you have any, let's talk a little bit about day 3. Again, we're not going to do this next week, but the following week we'll get day 3 all taken care of. What you're going to do is ride to American Falls, and I'm just going to take you down a frontage road to get to American Falls. It's about half dirt, about half paved, but it's basically like we used to do anyway, except we would come from west to east to get to American Falls from the Masker Rock site. This time we're just going from Pocatello down frontage roads right along the freeway to American Falls. You're going to get to American Falls. You're going to go to the co-op just like you did last year. Gas up. Co-op's open super early in the morning, and you'll be there super early in the morning. I would get going from Pocatello around 5:30 or 6, and you'll be there around 7, and you'll be able to have breakfast coffee with all the farmers. That'll get you out in the desert early in the day before it gets too hot, which should work out real good for you. We're not going to change anything getting out of American Falls. We're going to do it the same way we've done it the last few years. Some modest changes after you come out of the American Falls Bowl. We used to have like a little cow track. It was sort of a navigation challenge that went through the sagebrush. I'm really getting freaked out during tour season this year about fire danger, so we're going to keep you on the big sand trails. So we changed that up a little bit. We did that last year, and we put it in at the last minute because of the fire danger. This year, when that map comes up, it'll all be on there. So you will go to, you'll ride a little sandy section early on, then you're going to go to the American Falls Bowl, Lake Channel Bowl, excuse me. Ride through that, come out, take some quad trails. It'll take you back out to the road. And then you're going to ride north on farm roads all the way up to where the mystery section south of the butte starts. So once you get to the north end of those farm roads, just like last year, there'll be a big blank spot on the map between the end of those farm roads and Big Southern Butte. And that's where those mystery routes start. I've got about 20 of them, and I just randomly assign them to a team. When you get to American Falls, I will email them or I will text them to you. I did both last year for a lot of teams, whatever works best for you. And it'll be a spreadsheet with a series of directions on it. And we'll go through that special when we do day 3. But just to give you a little heads up, you get a spreadsheet, and it's going to have a compass bearing on it, a compass rose bearing on it, north, northwest, west, northwest, something like that. It's going to have a degree bearing on it. It's got a distance. It's got a little bit of information there, and you're basically just doing orienteering out in the desert. And we'll go through all of that when I get that stuff all ready in 2 weeks. We'll talk about how you're going to do that navigation. Very few teams had terminal trouble on that last year. Most teams were able to basically get through that. There were a couple teams that got lost, but I think I only dinged a few teams some points. A lot of people nailed it. Sean Smith, who's here tonight, nailed it. Jim Spooner, who's the first guy through, did really good. He got a little lost at one place, but not bad enough. I don't think I had to ding him. But there were some people last year that just did an extraordinary job. That 3-person team that came through late, I gave those guys one of the hardest ones to find, and they just nailed it, and they did it at warp speed. Their navigation was superb. And one of the things about this mystery section is that tells me whether or not you actually know how to navigate. And I like that. And so once I saw that 3-person team, once I saw Sean do what he did, those were people that I had a high degree of confidence that they know what they're doing. And that was not, when, especially Jim Spooner, first guy through, trails are getting closed, an hour before he's going to get there. And all I ever had to do was say, trail number, this direction. He figured it right out. He had no trouble whatsoever. That's the reason this section is in here, so it helps me get a feel for how well you navigate. If you blow it and you absolutely can't find your way, there's roads out there everywhere. Take roads that are going towards the Butte, find your way there. And what I said last year is the most I will ding anybody's a point if you can't do it. It's more the time that you're going to lose if you can't do it than anything else. But the worst you could lose is a point if you really blow the navigation. You're going to go to Big Southern Butte. And then we have the route waypointed all the way in Arco, and you should plan on being in Arco pretty early. You need to be there noon or before because from Arco to where you're going to go that night is a long ways. And the first part of it we'll give away to everybody. I'm going to put the waypoints up. You're going to take the way out of Arco, up over Arco Pass that we've used the last couple of years. You're going to go up north there, and then all of a sudden we're going to take you to some place we haven't taken the tour before, and you guys are going to dig the heck out of it. It's going to be great. You're going to spend the night someplace. The next day is also a mystery day, but I'll tell you right now, you're going to end up in Mackey at the end of the next day. So day 3 is going to go from Pocatello to Arco to mystery location for the night. Then day 4 is going to be mystery location to Mackey. That's where you're going to be spending the night. And those 2 days are going to burn your eyes out. You are just going to dig them. All right. So, Tyler, any OHV, ORV passes needed in Idaho for plated bikes? I see that a lot of people have answered that question. You're supposed to have one. If you have a plated bike, you can get by without it. Nobody will care as long as it's a plated bike. But I would recommend you buy one anyway. They've made it really easy. You can do it through the website. You don't have to have VIN numbers and stuff like that anymore. They did away with all that. In fact, I think you can even buy them at motorcycle shops again. And here's the cool thing about the trail stickers in Idaho. I buy them by the handful every year. I put them on my mountain bikes. I put them on my trailers. I put them on everything. The trail, 85% of the money from trail stickers in Idaho goes right back into trail maintenance. It goes to pay guys that I know to saw and maintain trails. I've gone out with those crews. They're great people. They do a lot of great work. So I highly recommend that you buy those stickers. Like I say, I buy them and put them on everything. They're on all my mountain bikes. I put them on my trailers. The other thing that it does, and this is even more important, is when you fill out that form, you get to designate what kind of trail user you are. And you want to make sure you check single track motorcycle. I check that on everything. Or sometimes I put single track mountain bike. And that's incredibly important. You can also designate where the money goes if you want to. If you tell them what county you live in, they earmark a certain, the more people that say I live in X county or I ride in X county, they will designate more of that money to go to trails in that area. You can leave it blank also if you want to, but absolutely check single track user. The problem we have in Idaho is that there are a ton of people that buy those trail stickers to put on their quads that they use 3 weeks a year, and it's all during hunting season. So everybody in the world that hunts has a little four-wheeler. They use the thing just to go hunting 2-3 weeks out of the year. Probably they only go one, but it's like a 3-week season. And those guys incredibly skew the statistics against single track users. So one of the reasons that a lot of the trails that you're going to ride on day 2 that are quad trails were single track trails 5 years ago. They all got converted to quad trails because you look at the use and the statistics are incredibly skewed towards quad users. So one of the things that a lot of us fought for was we need to decouple these trail stickers from VIN numbers and registrations. They wanted to do it through the Department of Motor Vehicles because they wanted to make sure that the DMV people were getting their cut. We managed to convince lawmakers to decouple those things. So now you can buy them for your mountain bikes if you want to. Years ago, you could do that. Then you couldn't do it for a few years. Now all of a sudden, it's really easy to do again. Just go to the state website for that, the trail sticker website, Parks and Rec, and you can buy them right from the website. If the fact that 85% of the money goes directly back in the trails doesn't impress you, we're losing trails to quad riders because not enough single track riders will buy those stickers. A lot of locals around here won't buy a trail sticker. Nope, I'm not spending $12 in that. Nope, I'm not buying that. I don't think I should have to give that money away. Okay. Well, then don't complain when they convert your favorite single track trail to a quad trail because the statistics are incredibly skewed in the favor of quad users. It's like 4-1. The more of those stickers you buy, check single track user, the more you skew those statistics more in our favor. Let's see. Fish and Game Guy told us last fall in CDA that they got rid of reciprocity with all their states. Out of state, they want all tagged. If you have a plated bike, you don't have to have a tag anywhere. When I go to California, I've got a plated bike, so I don't have to worry about their tags if I don't want to. Now, different people will interpret that different ways, I suppose, but if you have a street legal motorcycle, you don't really need a tag. You're not supposed to. Nonetheless, I would highly advise you to buy that tag. It's not a matter of is somebody going to bend up my arm behind my back to do it? Probably not. And if you have a legally plated bike somewhere else, probably there's nothing they can do about it. You should do it anyway because the reasons for doing it are good. It's the best $12 you're ever going to spend in your life. So let's see if we got anything else here. So I see all the usual suspects were here, and I appreciate that once again. Again, no PBR Monday next week because I'm going to have about 50 hollering 5- and 6-year-olds out in the yard jumping up and down. Once again, you've managed to waste an entirely good hour of your life with a knucklehead like me. I don't know why y'all do this, but I'm just pleased as heck if you do. So thank you once again for spending an hour. I hope we managed to clear up everything on day 2. As always, if you see something that's just flat out dead wrong, a waypoint that's misnumbered or mislocated or something like that, go ahead and PM me. Also, you can go ask questions on the forum. There's guys over there that are really sharp in all this stuff. They're up on it. They know what the heck's going on. I see a lot of good advice navigation-wise being given over in the forum. So if you can't get a hold of me, do that. But try to read the stuff a little bit before you start asking a bunch of questions because it makes me feel better when I shake your hand at the flagpole if you tried to help yourself out. All right, everybody. I will see you in 2 weeks. You all take care, and I will keep trying to get up stuff. Even though I'm not going to do a PBR next week, I'll keep trying to get up stuff day 3, day 4 out the next couple weeks. See you and cheers. Bye-bye.